If things aren't right in your workplace, the only thing you can change is you. Because believe it or not, when you start to change, the people around you will start to change.
This is the Rebel HR Podcast, the podcast where we talk to HR innovators about all things people leadership. If you're looking for places to find about new ways to think about the world of work, this is the podcast for you. Please subscribe from your favorite podcast listening platform today and leave us a review. Rebel on, HR Rebels. All right, Rebel HR listeners, extremely excited for this week's show. We have two wonderful guests, so I am outnumbered, but really looking forward to the conversation. And this has been a long time coming. So we connected and scheduled this back in July of 2021. And by the time this thing comes out, it's going to be almost December. So, but it's been really going to be an exciting conversation. And we're going to be talking about their new book coming soon here, Humanity Works Better. Today we have Debbie Cohen, the Chief Instigation Officer and co-founder of Humanity Works, and Kate Roeske Zummer, the Chief Inspiration Officer and co-founder of Humanity Works. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Kyle. So excited to be here.
Delighted to be here.
Well, really looking forward to it. And I've just got a number of questions that I want to get into. But I think the first question that I'll ask both of you is, what led you to write the book, Humanity Works Better?
So we wrote the book because we wanted to write a book that was accessible for you. You being somebody who is in an organization and wants to have that organization feel more human, because working together with people is messy, and most people don't know how to navigate that well, and that can stall productivity. It can make your workday feel very long, and we wanted to give people some real skills that would help them feel more connected to each other as human beings. And our belief is if we do that, then business wins.
Kate and I both, spent decades inside organizations and just watched the life zapped out of people. Really, watching decades where we looked at process efficiency and how do we get leaner and meaner and faster. And then we watched efficiency take hold and how do we actually get fewer people to do more. And that just left the workplace depleted. And from that place of scarcity and depletion, we watched really bad behaviors begin to emerge. And the really best of humans get lost as they were being treated more like resources and not like humans. And as we stepped back and looked at our work, our commitment to the world, what we want to bring to the world, which is, a place where really the world of work works better. We thought the answer to that is, let's look at bringing more humanity into the workplace and looking at how to help people navigate from a relational component. The roadblocks that we saw people hit were so often roadblocks tied to how to be with one another, not what to do. These are smart people. They know what to do. But what trips them up so often, either internal roadblocks or working with others, was just how to be in good relationships. So we thought, let's write a book about how to be more human with one another. Hey, we should build a whole company about that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. and there's a way too where it's so easy, and we see this in organizations, to deflect the problem over there. It's them. They're the ones that are doing this.
Leadership needs to do something.
That's right. And this really comes out of our own experience in terms of the work that we do in organizations. But we actually wanted to write this book because for you, and give you, the reader, real skills and tools that you can do, because that is the only thing that you can control is you. Right?
In the book, we say, if things aren't right in your workplace, the only thing you can change is you. Because believe it or not, when you start to change, the people around you will start to change. Right. And so any change has to start with yourself. And so that's where our practices and our skills are really aimed at approachable, pragmatic, practical things that anyone can do.
It's really interesting, and I'm kind of furiously taking notes and reflecting on what you both just shared, and there's so many like there's just so much truth in everything that was just shared. But the one thing I'm laughing internally is, and my mom is a listener to this podcast, so shout out, Mom. Thanks for listening. It's at least one download a week. That's pretty cool. When I was going into human resources, at one point she said, human resources, taking the human out of HR. And at the time I was like, oh, you're so cynical and jaded. That's just a silly joke. That's funny. But the more I'm in the profession, I do reflect on how easy that is to do sometimes. And if we're not intentional about that in our organizations, some organizations more than others, it's sometimes as an HR practitioner, it's easier to do the job if you take the H out of HR and you truly do just focus on the resources component, like numbers and productivity, and don't take into account the relationship component. But I feel like some of us have probably lost our way along the way in HR, and are maybe trying to find our way back to the kind of the joy of solving people problems and helping organizations succeed. Or maybe are realizing that the profession isn't what we thought when we got into it, and are struggling with that. So if I'm thinking about this in the context of organizational leadership, and you mentioned that, you have to control what you can control, and that means you start with yourself. What guidance would you give to an HR practitioner, HR professional who is struggling with bringing humanity into the workplace and making their place a great place to work?
So, this is the instigator in me.
I love it.
Yeah. So I got into HR not because I believed it was a noble profession, but because I believed it was the heart and soul of what fuels an organization. But it was so broken. And I thought I can sit on the outside and complain, or you step inside and you see how hard it is to do that work. And y'all know it's super hard to do that work. And the answer, I think, to your question is you have to know why you're in it and what you believe, right? And so my beliefs about human potential are deeply grounded in who I am, how I've educated myself, the experiences that I've had. And so for me, a fundamental belief I have about human behavior is that we're all self-motivated to move and act on the world in ways that give us meaning. As I began to lead HR functions, that belief guided everything I did. Everything I did, every decision I made. So then as I started shaping teams, we had to decide, how do we have to show up as partners to our business to live that? And what happens if we can unleash that potential into our organization? What's possible from a business outcome? And that's really the 25 plus years I spent inside organizations. What I brought into the organization was starting with, as the leader of the function, what do I believe about humans and their potential? And then how do I build a function and unleash that potential into an organization and watch what happens? And so examples, right? Here's like a practical one. Everybody on this call at some point or another had to deal with performance improvement, putting people on PIPs. And we all know, like, a PIP is really, if we're going to be honest about it, it's just like the next door step to leaving somebody in the organization and protecting the organization's back end. And so a HR business partner came to me one day and was telling me about this person they're about ready to put on a PIP, and it made no sense to me. What she was telling me about this person made no sense to what I knew about this person from a personal relationship with them. We write about this in the book. The story is in the book. And so I got curious. One of the skills in the book, get curious. And so I asked for a meeting with the business partner, the person's manager, and that person's manager, because they'd all been swirling on this. We know what happens by the time somebody's on a PIP. You've been talking about those issues for months, probably. And this had been gone for months. And the manager and their boss were like, we're done. Get this person out of the organization. And it was such a mismatch to what I believed about that person. So I called them and left a message and asked them, they'd been ghosting the organization, just not showing up, and asked them to come in. And when they came in that following morning, and I'm like, I'm just worried about you, tell me what's going on. They were having a severe mental crisis. They were really at risk to themselves. And each day brought its own threats and demons to them. And that was why they weren't showing up at work. And they were too embarrassed and they didn't know what to say. And so we talked about what they needed and what the organization needed. And the first thing was a courageous conversation with their manager about what was going on so we could find a mutual solution. And we did, one that supported that person on their road back to well-being, and one that also met the needs of the business so that their needs to deliver what was required was met. There were some hard boundaries around that and some hard talks and some tears, but the efficient step would have been to put that person on a PIP, and they would have failed. And in the next, they would have moved on, and the outcome for them would have been precarious, and the organization would have moved forward. That would have been treating him as a resource and not a human, and caring about what was happening for him and the need of the business and finding the right outcome for both. It was a different path to take.
It's such a powerful story. And I think it exemplifies a couple of things. And I just, I'm just, as you're describing the story, of course, my brain works in, HR fashion. So it's like, okay, from a compliance standpoint, had you not taken the human approach, you would have not only put, that individual's, potential, life or mental health at risk, but also would have put the business at risk, because I guarantee you that those leaders had some inkling that something was going on, and some comment was probably made somewhere that could then turn into a lawsuit, right? And oh, by the way, the other thing I'm thinking through is you mentioned efficiency. Like, yes, had we treated that person like a resource, it would have been very efficient, and we would have followed this due process, and we could have documented all that, blah, blah, blah. But it would have really sucked to have to try to hire another person. So it could have been efficient, but it wouldn't have been very effective. And you know how inefficient a new hire is when you're trying to train them on a brand new job, and you just hope you got the right skill set, and then it takes 6 months to figure out that maybe that wasn't the right person and that they were just a really good interviewer. And, I could keep going on and give you 75 different examples of when we screwed up a hiring decision and we should have just kept the person.
Yeah. Well, and there's the place that I think is so fascinating about this particular story is that it requires you as an HR person to think bigger, to think more deeply about what is it that you're trying to create in this organization with the people that you have in that organization. So one of the practices that we write about is claiming value. But in order for you to claim that value, you have to know what is important to you and what it is you want to create. And that's the work that I think so oftentimes I have so much compassion for people in HR, because I feel like there's so much going on and you're just trying to solve the problem, and then you're on to another problem that happens. And one of the things is to pause and to sort of say, hang on a minute, what am I trying to create here with the people that work in this organization? Is it a place where people can be more human and we want more humanity? Is there something else that's going on?
And part of that, I love, Kate, is this belief in why you're there and where you are adding value, right? Oftentimes I support organizations as they're hiring, they're top of the house, and I'll run interviews with top of the house. And one of the questions, so if you're ever on the other side of a table, heads up, one of the questions I always ask is, the senior team is down the hall, top of the house, down the hall. Why do you deserve to be in the room? And 9 times out of 99.9 times, I get some answer like, it's because I have to execute on what they decide. To which I reply, so does everybody else sitting on this side of the door. So why do you deserve to be at the table? I will call it, because we fought to be there for so many years. And the answer to that, a founder of a company asked me once, Debbie, what's really the answer I should be listening for, is because you, more than any other person at that table, understands people. In the same way the CMO understands marketing and the CTO understands technology, you, more than anyone else, hold a bigger picture and remit about the largest investment this company makes, and that is in their people and the potential and the possibility of those people. And your voice is at that table to connect every piece of business strategy to the people that are dependent on to execute that strategy. That's your voice at the table. Instigator.
I love it. And I think about the whole, there's the whole seat at the table, push. And I think maybe a little bit more of a buzzword at some point, but I do think it goes back to, it really is, it's about the value you bring, right? Like at the end of the day, it's not about elbowing your way in and, forging a, path to get there. It's about driving enough value that people are asking you to be there, right? And that they want your voice in that room, because you are the voice of the people, and you are the, maybe a contrarian opinion to a business decision that we haven't considered, the ripple effect of this or that.
And the flip and the sort of downstream of that too, Kyle, is people would often ask, like, how do you know you're adding value? And my answer to that is repeat customers, right? This is a service. Yes. You are an internal service agent to the organization. So when you have people seeking you out, not to tell them how long their maternity or parental leave is, but because you're adding value to them being better humans with the humans they're trying to work with, then you're adding value to your organization.
When Molly, Patrick, and I tried to figure out how to start our own podcast, we didn't know where to start. Thankfully, we found Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout makes it super easy for us to upload our episodes, track our listeners, and get listed on all the major podcast networks. Today's a great day to start your own podcast. I know that you're one of our listeners, so you've definitely got something to say. Whether you're looking for a new marketing channel, have a message you want to share with the world, or just think it would be fun to have your own talk show, podcasting is an easy, inexpensive, and fun way to expand your reach online. Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Your show can be online and listed in all the major podcast directories within minutes of finishing your recording. Podcasting isn't that hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. And now, for listeners of Rebel HR, you can get a $20 Amazon gift card sent to you from Buzzsprout by clicking in the link in the show notes. Thanks for listening.
We'll be back after a quick break.
And so used to having everything in front of them right away that we forget that innovation just takes time. I myself, I get frustrated too. Why? And this as being one of my best friends is, hey, I talk to you all the time. Hey, man, I'm frustrated in the fact that I can't seem to just get there in the next day. But that's just not how these things work, right? Innovation needs to be planned out. It needs to be very methodical. And then when it finally hits, that's when it seems like to everyone else that it sort of just came out of nowhere. But to you, the amount of dedication that it took over that time.
We start off the book by writing about productivity is about people. We love to sort of bottom line and make productivity about processes. And the truth of the matter is, and we're seeing this right now, I mean, I think that's one of the things behind the Great Resignation, right? We are starting to really feel the pressure of needing to be with the people that we have, that we are dependent upon getting the work done that we need to get done. So that's part of the conversation that needs to shift, because we need our people to feel happy and valued and respected, all of those things right now. And I think that's one of those things that is starting to shift, and we need some more skills in terms of being able to help people to do that.
Yeah. It's not like a house plant. You just walk by and water every now and then and talk to it and, hope that it lives. You have to nurture the people and the relationships in your organization if you want them to stay in relationship with you.
I don't know. Houseplants are pretty hard for me. So you kind of lost me at that one. My wife and I, we can't keep a houseplant alive to save our life. We're doing our best, but we have a lot of learning to do. I think it's such a powerful point. And I think it's so interesting. And I think, as we hear these headlines about the Great Resignation, and we learn about mental health in the workplace and, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and some of the challenges that workplaces are facing that they didn't feel like they had to deal with. Obviously there's the differences that people have related to how they feel about the pandemic and vaccines and masks and all these things. But at the heart of all of these challenges in the workplace, it really is, it's people, right? I mean, when no one's sitting in the office or on their computer, there's no HR issues because nobody's in the building. I used to have a great HR mentor, and I was really struggling with the problem at one point. And he kind of pulled me aside and he said, listen, okay, this is really simple. And this is in a retail setting. He's like, we don't have any customer issues until we open those doors, and then customers are in the store. And we won't have any employee issues until we open the doors and let the employees come in. But you're going to always have those issues. So just relax and work through it. But it does take time and listening. And it's not as simple as creating a widget or systemizing every little thing, because people are messy and they bring everything with them, right? Whether you want them to or not, it's still there. So I think one of the challenges that I want to dig into a little bit, and I know you touch on in the book, is how being human also feels very vulnerable, especially to someone who's maybe been in the career for a while, or somebody who is new in the career and doesn't really have the clout to start throwing around their weight or driving and instigating as much change. So how do we deal with that vulnerability, and how does that actually set us up for success?
So we write about this pretty extensively in what is, Debbie knows, is one of my all-time favorite chapters of this book, which is called Daring Not to Know. It also feels a little bit like it's related to creating safety, which is one of the first practices we write about. And there is what we really believe is that you could actually take a stand, and even if it's in your small little part of the world, you might not be at the C level or the VP level. But if you see somebody not treating somebody else in your realm well, you could actually speak up to create safety. And that's vulnerable work. And I think part of it is you sort of deciding, I'm actually not comfortable with this, right? So what does that look like to actually be vulnerable enough to take a stand for something. It's why you'll start to see there's a crossover between all of these. We're sort of in creating safety, we're in claiming value, and daring not to know. You may not know how this conversation is going to go, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try to have that conversation with somebody.
The skill that we offer inside daring not to know is curiosity, right? It could be very vulnerable for some leaders to say they don't know. But using powerful questions, another skill in the book, using powerful questions rooted in curiosity lets you open the door for other people to engage with you, right? So you don't have to say, boy, I don't know the answer to that really hard problem. But you can say, I'm curious what, Kyle, you think about this, which invites your participation in, and I can learn more while I'm listening and helping you feel valued and contributing to this.
You suddenly feel more respected and more valued because the person that does have potential positional power has just asked you genuinely, what do you think? That's going to increase engagement. That's going to increase a sense of trust and that you matter. Inclusion. These are the soft skills that we are passionate about, and they're not complicated.
One of the things that we talk about when it comes to curiosity and some of the other challenges you mentioned HR folks are grappling with right now is that curiosity is the antidote to judgment. Curiosity is the antidote to judgment, right? So instead of standing in my perspective and telling you, here is the truth, which is actually only my perception of the truth, I can actually put that down and get curious about how other people are seeing this issue. What's important to them about that? What ideas do they have? All of those are curiosity questions that don't have to say, folks, I am helpless here and don't know the answer. So I'm just going to bare my chest and bare my soul and let you all just eat me alive that I don't know. I'm actually going to invite you in to helping co-create and solve. Your ideas matter and I care about that. Really care, because I don't really know the answer to this. I'm just one human walking this planet. We talk a lot about how the rank and file in an organization often think that the folks at the top of the house know all the answers. And our experience is that is so not the truth. That is so not the truth.
Laughing. Yes.
Yeah, right. Comic,
Thank you.
So not the truth. And so as leaders and as others in the organization, what's it like to be curious? What's it like to ask a question?
And actually be willing to sort of admit that you don't know everything. And that actually is a process of vulnerability and surrender. But what it also really does is it invites other people into helping you solve that problem.
Back to productivity is all about people. When Kate and I were playing with this concept and writing the book, one of the things that we sort of laughed about is, people think and know they're hired to solve problems. And so we just keep faking it. And how much time is wasted in an organization with people faking that they're making it up or that they're over there trying to solve the problem without ever asking for help because it doesn't feel safe or they don't know how to do it without losing face. And curiosity is a great way to do that.
Yeah. I'm just glad that we can admit that they, as you refer to, they need to do this as in like the leadership team or they know, every ripple effect, or they did this on purpose because they knew that this would happen if they, changed this plan around, it's their fault. Like, and I love nothing more than bursting people's bubble. And, I'm sorry, but, it's not some great conspiracy theory. Sometimes we're just flying by the seat of our pants and really hoping this is like the least worst decision that we can make in this situation. Right. Like a lot of times, like, I don't freaking know what the right answer here is, but I know if I don't do anything, it's going to be worse than making a sort of rightly directional decision, but maybe not perfect, right?
Yeah.
And that's the challenge, right?
Yeah, Debbie and I talk about this a lot. We talk about it at the C-suite level, on down. Is stop thinking that the inverted commas, they have the answer. Because that actually just feeds this whole idea of the imposter syndrome, for those of you that have ever read about that, right? That is that, oh, well, they are more powerful. They know more. And so part of that work, getting back to who we wrote this book for, is for you. We want you to step up and actually start to offer up your ideas to the people around you, because that's what they need. They don't need you to capitulate. They need you to push against them, offer a different perspective.
Well, and I also love, Kyle, where you were going, which is like, and sometimes they're just making this up. Like, imagine if our people knew that, right? I'm doing the best I can today with the information that I have. And then we're going to learn from that. One of the gifts I learned when I started working in tech was from engineers who taught me about iteration, right? Incremental. Like, I think one of the nemesis present in HR communities is we want to deliver the full package with the bows tied and the angels singing and the fireworks going off, that we're delivering this great thing. But oftentimes we've done it over there in a bubble, absent from other people. But one of the gifts I learned in the engineering world is you hack on great ideas. You start and you put it out there. You hold it kind of lightly and you get some feedback. And then you iterate from there, and you iterate from there, and you iterate from there. And boy, that has served me well working in engineering dominant organizations, to engage them, to be like, look, here's where we're headed. Here's why I believe this is important. Here's what you can count on me for. Here's what I need from you. Kick the tires on this. Where will this work? Where haven't I not thought of something? Let's make this work for the organization in a way that has value, and engage them in helping you create something for them that has value. Their uptake on that will be a heck of a lot faster than when you try to drop something into the organization because you think it's the right thing for them.
Well, Debbie, you're speaking to the heart of me right now. And I do love a really well-crafted, like, HR appropriate, like, pamphlet, and everything's like ironed out and it's great. And this is like puppy dogs and rainbows and everything's going to love it. And then you roll it out and somebody's like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
This is,
the dumbest thing you ever heard.
Oh. But, and I just love that approach. And I do think that it's such an important thing to remember, and something that we can control in HR it's kind of the, I call it rampant incrementalism, right? It's like, just get a little bit better, take that idea, keep moving. And I also work in an organization that has a lot of engineers. So yeah, this goes back to, listen and be curious and learn how they do it. Cause guess what? They build stuff and design stuff all day long. Well, that's what we do in HR. It's just a little different, right? The systems are different. It's people. Yeah. And the same idea.
Same idea. And the outcome that Kate was referring to in Daring Not to Know is engagement. And boy, back to how do you know if you're adding value? Those return customers, when they come back to you and say, wow, Kyle, that thing you rolled out was amazing. Come help us do it again over here.
100%. And I think, one of the challenges, we talked about this before we hit record, is kind of that burnout, right? The risk of burnout, especially in HR. Any people heavy job right now, everybody's got a risk of burnout. So like, everybody take a deep breath. It'll be fine. Recenter yourself. As we said, pause. But then I think that, I think the thing that is really maybe can help you get through it and remind you you're doing something right is if you do have those repeat customers and people are coming to you for your ideas and your perspectives, and they're seeking your guidance and support, you are doing something right.
That's right.
You should feel good about that. And I know some of us have the tendency, myself included, to think, oh, what now? But I'm always pleasantly surprised when someone says, hey, just help me with this. What's your thoughts? And I'm like, oh, you mean I don't have to do anything? I just have to like give you my perspective. I'm winning. All right. So just remember that. And I guarantee you that a number of our listeners right now are probably struggling with something going on. As long as you got people asking for your advice, your support, your ideas, you are on the right track. Keep it up.
I love that where you're pointing, in our coaching practice, one of the sort of tenets is people are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. We don't need to fix them, right? And I think oftentimes HR practitioners get into it because you want to be helpful. We want to fix what's broken. Back to, instigator and HR. Our 2 cents there is you help them help themselves. That's where you're adding value. And so taking that breath and pause to say, what's needed here right now? And how do I help that person take their step forward? Not me fix it. How do I help them take the step forward? I think is another way of adding values to your customers. You're growing their potential and capacity and capability as you stand and help them in that messy moment.
Absolutely. This is such a great conversation. I wish I had another 2 hours because we could just keep going and going and going. But I do want to be respectful of your time, and we're coming to the end of our time together. So want to make sure I'm fascinated about what these responses are going to be that we get through the Rebel HR Flash Round. So I will start with Debbie, and then we'll go to Kate with each question. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Ready. Perfect. All right, Debbie, what is your favorite people book?
So I have a bunch on my bookshelves, but for today, I'm going to say one of my favorite people books is Simon Sinek's Why. And I think for the HR population, really grounding yourselves in the why you do, and then his next string is how you are being while you are living that why, and then what. Don't start with what, start with your why.
Love that. All right, Kate, what is your favorite people book?
One of my favorite people books is Brené Brown's Dare to Lead, which I know is a New York Times bestseller. But I just think that is really encapsulates what makes leading so challenging, is that it's a daring place to be. And if we are vulnerable junkies, and if you can dare to lead from a place of not knowing, inviting other people into sharing what they know, I think we're going to change what leadership looks like. And that's super near and dear to my heart.
That is, I have not had a chance to read that book yet. But my only comment there is my wife is reading that book right now. And all I can say is she's definitely leading me somewhere. I don't know where it's going, but she's taking something from it. And the house is much more productive. So, all right. Second question, Debbie, who should we be listening to?
So I'm going to be vague on this one and say you should be listening to people that meet you where you are. So, for example, if you need to be stretched, then listen to people outside of your normal orb. If you need to be filled, listen to somebody that will fill your soul. Right now, I'm listening to the love songs of E.B. Du Bois because it's taking me on a journey and into a world I need to understand and appreciate and learn more of. And so it's a stretch place for me.
Love that. Kate?
I think you probably need to be listening to the people who you've hired. And there's a part of me that says, oftentimes we hire these people at all different levels, and then we just tell them what we think they should be doing. And I know it sounds super rudimentary, but I think that's one of the things that's going on right now in the Great Resignation is that we are not like putting into these relationships what we want to get out of these relationships, that we are sort of making all sorts of assumptions about what these people can do, what their bandwidth is, what their area of expertise is, and we tend to shove people in those boxes. And I'm like, what if you actually expanded that and started to ask all of your people some of those questions, and you got a kind of more input than you really might not normally get?
Right. To bring it full circle, that is a resource worth listening to.
That's right.
You're humans.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. We made that connection. I'm just happy about that. All right. Last question. And I'll just open this up to anybody. How can our listeners connect with you?
Yeah, they can find us on our website, which is www.humanityworks.com. You can find out about our book that is coming out on October 26th. You can have access to podcasts and articles and newsletters, and as well as, and we'll send these to you, our, social media links.
Yeah, Kate and I are both on Twitter, LinkedIn, and we are big fans of the HR community and the important role they play in fostering and bringing humanity to work. So we're all in on whatever you need from us.
Love it. And we'll have all that information in the show notes as well when the show goes live. Check out the book, Humanity Works Better. I can't wait to grab a copy here. And, just really appreciate the time, some pragmatic advice, some great advice in a time that has definitely stretched HR professionals. So really appreciate your time, and thanks. Look forward to learning more from you.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. All right, that does it for the Rebel HR podcast. Big thank you to our guests. Follow us on Facebook at Rebel HR Podcast, Twitter at Rebel HR Guy, or see our website at rebelhumanresources.com. The views and opinions expressed by Rebel HR Podcast are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any of the organizations that we represent. No animals were harmed during the filming of this podcast.
Baby.